Alright, welcome back to part 2 of this APT 5K Superstar Challenge review, where we finished in 3rd place for 114K. We have a bunch of hands to go over today. We're gonna do it a bit more fast-paced than last video. Last video, it was mostly post-flop stuff, and we went a bit more in-depth. This one is going to be a bit more like rapid fire, look at a bunch of pre-flop spots mostly, a couple of post-flop hands I think as well. But yeah, mostly rapid fire pre-flop ITM spot. It's a pretty interesting final table in terms of the stack distribution, where we had like 1 giga chip lead for most of the final table, and I was mostly in like 3rd, 2nd, 4th place. So I was in ICM jail for most of this final table, and lots of interesting spots, so let's get into it. First hand we're gonna have a look at here is 8 people left, and we have ace-jack suited in the big blind. Button opens off 16. I ended up misplaying this one, I would say. We could see that I'm looking into inducing here, but then I do end up going for the jam instead, which we're about to see is a mistake. This hand is supposed to be a pure induce, and I think I'm kind of surprised that I did end up jamming this as well. It does feel to me like a fairly intuitive induce. I think maybe I got confused by the stack size, thinking he had like less than he actually had. Thought like maybe he had like 15 bigs or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what happened there, but when I look at it now, it looks like fairly obvious induce to me. So yeah, kind of disappointed that I jammed. All right, so here we can see the sim, and this is not exactly the same, but it's same average stack, and we have a 10 big blind stack here. We have a 16 big blind stack on the button, who's opening into 2 people that cover him by a lot. So it's like similar enough, I think. We can see he's playing a bunch of jams, which is natural. He would play jams here for chips as well, but we can see with this risk premium, he's a bit more incentivized to just take it down pre-right. So he's playing a bit more jams than we would normally see probably. Our range in the big blind here, he's gonna rejam quite a bit, but our hand just wants to 3-bet induce, as I suspected. The EV is fairly close though, like jamming is 0.22 and inducing to 5 bigs is 0.23. So it is better, but not a huge mistake by any means. Yeah, prefer just jamming like small offsuit aces, small suited aces, some of these suited kings, some of these like lower suited like Broadway middling cards. Ace-jack suited kind of just too good really versus this range. Bit surprising here to see that ace-jack off is also inducing quite a bit. I would think like the offsuit ones were like slam dunk jams, but yeah, even those are inducing, so yeah, interesting to see. Okay, next hand here. Now we're 7 people left, and as we can see, the stacks are shifting towards Brazil here. This Thiago Crema guy now has twice as much as anyone else, and he has position on us, which is not amazing. I choose to size up here, which I think is good. I think I should size up to disencourage small blind from VPPing too much versus us, and also big blind. Niklas is going to get to defend quite wide here, since he's by far the shortest stack and very shallow. The more shallow you are, the more you get to defend. We get 3-bet here by Thiago, and I don't think our hand is interested in taking a flop here or anything like that. I would rather 4-bet jam than take a flop, but even that, I don't think it's great with pocket sixes. Feels like it's just a fine one to let go. Let's have a look. Okay, so this is a kind of similar sim. 40 big blind average is the same. We're 40 in the cutoff, 41, which is the same. Difference is that the small blind had quite a bit more in the in-game situation than in this sim. Anyways, I open to 2. The small blind is going to play a range like this, which I think in-game he would be overcooking it. I think he would be playing quite a bit more aggressive than this. We can see here he's playing 2 different sizes. He's playing like 6 big blinds and 10 big blinds. In-game it was like I raised to 2.7 and he raised to like 8.7. So we can have a quick look here. If he raises to 6, what happens? Versus 6, we're actually calling mostly. It's mixing in a tiny bit of fold as well. Sevens is actually folding quite a bit more. Some blocker, unblocker effects going on there, obviously. But yeah, it's super close in EV. Given that he probably overcooks it a bit in-game, though, makes me think that maybe we should have B-pipped this one in-game, either by calling or jamming, probably. Yeah, we can see the four bet jams here are kind of intuitive ones, I think. Like pocket jacks. Ace jack, I would feel really iffy about. I would probably jam ace queen, kind of opposite from this. I'd probably jam ace queen and call ace jack more. Probably make a mistake there. And yeah, we can see like how we're supposed to respond to the 10 big blind as well. Very interesting that the big blind here, who has 7 bigs, actually calls off this wide, versus 10 big blind, small blind 3-bet here. But it makes a lot of sense. He's getting like insanely good odds, right? He's calling 6 to win the big blind ante, or yeah, roughly, the big blind, the small blind, he has to beat, obviously, my 2 big blinds from the cutoff. And he's playing against a range that is very polar, right? If we look at this 10 big blind 3-betting range from the small blind, it's like queens and kings, right? Ace king, okay? And then like a bunch of bluffs, basically. So it does make a lot of sense that he just gets to call off insanely wide here. Pocket threes, though, like I think most people wouldn't be able to find this one, to be honest, but looking at ranges, I think it makes a lot of sense. Versus this big 3-bet, 10 big blinds, we're actually playing jams, jam or fold only, basically, like some small 4-bets as well. Aces and ace king suited. And then we're jamming a bunch and folding a bunch. 6s and 7s can actually be jammed, but yeah. I looking at this now, I should probably have B-pipped in game, given the fact that I think he was overcooking quite a bit. But yeah, it's what it is. This is a pretty interesting one, I think. Now it's like super ITM prison. Look at the stack. We have 11.5, 11, 14, 9. We have 18, 19 in the big blind. And then Thiago just has 80 bigs. So we're 2 out of 6, and we have 19 bigs. Big ICM prison here. Very interesting spot when it folds to the small blind. If he limps here, I think we have like very clear jam. If he jams, we're gonna have to fold. And he went for the min raise. And I was very unsure about this. I kind of just extrapolated the strat that if he limped, I would jam. So I treated this like, not exactly like a limp, but I kind of extrapolated that this is also going to be a nice hand to jam versus the min raise. But I'm not sure about this one, so yeah. We did end up getting the fold, which is nice. But could be a mistake. Let's see. Okay, so this one is close enough, I think. Yeah, very similar average stack size, and small blind has 9 bigs. This is his strategy, where he's playing a bunch of shoves, obviously, and then he's playing like a min raise with a bunch of the hands that are just not good enough to shove, plus all his best hands. Pocket 8s plus, suited broadways. Yeah, bit surprised he doesn't use these ones as well, but okay, cool. So he min raises, and yeah, I think my extrapolation of strategy was quite on point here. We can see that it's very similar strategy as you would play versus a limp, right? You just shove like a bunch of offsuit aces, bunch of like the smallest offsuit kings, a bunch of the smallest pairs, some of these things. We can have a look like how much different the strat is versus just limp. I think it's gonna have like a similar shape at least, Yeah, very much similar shape. Here we actually don't use the small pairs, which is kind of surprising to me. Not gonna lie, but yeah, in terms of like the offsuit stuff, like we're using the smallest offsuit kings, bit more of the offsuit queens here as well. And then, yeah, like very scattered, weird looking strat in terms of the suited stuff, but okay, cool. All right, now we're just 4 people left for the next hand, and a lot of things has happened here. We can have a quick look at the stacks before we continue. So we see that Thiago is now actually in second place. while this let's roll guy has the chip lead. Luke has 5.3 bigs, and we have 13.3 in every one. So he raises into us, and he's gonna play kind of a polar raising range here, right? He's gonna VP up 100 for sure. He's gonna raise or jam 100. I'm pretty sure. I don't think he's gonna play any folds. I don't think he's gonna play any limps. Is this gonna jam or RFI? Question is, what do we do with ace 10 suited? We clearly have a monster hand versus his range. Question is, should we jam or should we induce? Those are the two options, I think. I do think we have to be cognizant of Luke having only 5 bigs, so I ended up just jamming this one. If I was the shortest stack here, I would probably have induced it, but when the risk premium is this high with Luke having only 5.3, I think jamming is the better option than to take it down, so let's see. Yeah, so I found the sim which is fairly similar. Cutoff and small blind have a bit shorter stacks in this one than they did in-game, and their stacks are reversed. Here you can see Cutoff is playing a bunch of open jams actually, which is kind of interesting because he covers the small blind, and small blind just has to play like so tight versus jammer. We can look at his calling range actually versus these jams. It's kind of interesting. In-game, the Cutoff was actually covered by small blind, so this wouldn't happen, but doesn't matter. It's not the relevant part of the hand anyways. But yeah, he open jams, and the small blind can only call aces and kings. Queens is mixing. So yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. But anyways, he folded, and then it went to the small blind, who is supposed to play this range, which I don't think is very likely. First of all, there's a bunch of stuff here that I don't think is happening. I don't think he's open jamming any of these like big pairs. I don't think he's open jamming any of the suited, big suited aces. I don't think he's open jamming 3 deuce off, 5 deuce off, these ones. I think it's gonna play way more RFI in game than what this sim is doing. And we can have a look at like versus min raise, because I thought it was kind of a funny response. We don't induce anything because the risk premium is very high. We can have a quick look. Big blind versus small blind, we have 16% risk premium. So massive, obviously. And yeah, we just jam or call. And this one actually just calls. Kind of close in EV. In game, he played 2.2 raise instead of min raise like here. And I think his raising range is going to be very different from what we saw in this one. I think it's going to be RFIing much more. So I think ace-10 suited is going to be closer in reality, than what it is in this sim. But I don't think it matters much. I think it's fairly close in either direction. And yeah, interesting to see this though, especially the pairs, like the pairs always get me. They're the one that feels the most counterintuitive. It's so tempting to just slam it in with all the small pairs, right, versus this min raise. But the fact is, like, we just want to call the pairs because we want to keep in 3 deuce off, 4 deuce off, 5 deuce off, all of these, like, hands here. So, yeah, kind of interesting one. Next hand, very, very interesting spot, I think. I felt like all options were on the table here. Fold, min raise, or jam. Or maybe not even min raise, but like 2.5x or whatever. It did feel like every option was on the table. Big collision effect here, of course, when we do fold. Small blind is fairly often gonna jam, and big blind is fairly often gonna call, and fairly often gonna bust. So we do get a pay jump relatively often. We've locked up 88k at this point, and next pay jump is 115k. Top price is 193k. So yeah, decent pay jump, of course, going from 4th to 3rd. Decent ITM. Ended up holding, I believe, which I think is good. Jamming here to pick up 2 bigs just doesn't seem worth it to me. Yeah, and in fact, they do end up getting it in, and I think Luke ends up busting this hand. Not that it matters. Let's spend 3 more seconds to see. Yeah, So anyways, let's have a look in GTO Wizard. Okay, so I found a sim that's pretty much exactly what we had in-game. Only difference here is that the big blind has 6 bigs in this sim, while in-game he had 5 bigs. And we can see here 10-9 suited is mixing fold and min raise, but even jamming is like very close in EV. Jack 10 suited jamming a lot. Yeah, I did end up folding in game. I think probably this is also a good adjustment given how out of line the small blind was playing. Hard for a small blind to play too out of line here, I think. We can have a look. The thing that's going to happen here, I suspect, is that the small blind is not playing that out of line, because if the small blind is 3-betting non-all in here, the big blind just ends up calling off a lot, I think. Because like he's calling off versus a bunch of bluffs, right? Like all these suited queens, suited kings, offsuit ace-x. We can have a look to see if this is true, but I'm going to suspect that if we put 4.5 here, big blind is going to go all in quite wide. Actually, no, false. That didn't really happen. What about if he jams? Do we call off wide? Pretty much the same thing. Kind of surprised he doesn't call off wider, to be honest. I feel like this is like a typical spot where the big blind just gets to call off quite wide because he's getting a really good price. Of course, the button is opening like a really tight range here. Like the raising range is just 13%, right? So that probably factors in as well. You can't just call off that wide because, yeah, it's actually two like fairly tight ranges you're up against. So I guess that makes sense. But yeah, 10-9 suited, close in either direction. Okay, this is gonna be the last hand of the video and the last hand of this tournament for me. Spoiler, and I think it's a pretty interesting one. I wasn't sure about preflop, kind of felt very close between open jam and raise or limp. Wasn't sure how much we're limping in general this shallow. Probably do play a decent bit of limp. It's not like RP is that high on us here. We're like clearly the shortest stack. Both of them are 50 bigs and we have like 13, right? So not that high of an RP. Flop, kind of whatever, between bet small and check call in my head. I went for the check call versus the super small bets. You want like B20 or whatever. Yeah, flop, fine, turn, I check again. Wonder if I was thinking, do we get to play any like small leads here? I think not because the king improves us that much, but just because we have check called, so we obviously have something, while he has bet, which he could do with all sorts of hands. So I would think that we have a small range advantage on the turn, so I'm thinking maybe we get to push equity by leading some here. But I did end up just going for the check call. He goes for a B25 roughly on the turn. Don't think we have much of an incentive to check jam. Don't think he's that likely to just bet call 5-7 with a spade or something like that, you know. River as well, I was thinking, do we get to play any leads here? Not sure. Ended up just checking. And yeah, he puts us in. I don't think we have a particularly tough decision on the river, of course. We just call and we're out. GG's. I think pretty interesting hand. There we go, third place. Let's have a look, see how we did. Kind of interesting both pre-flop and post-flop, I think. Okay, so this is the last hand, and I found a sim that's pretty much exactly what we had in-game. In-game, we had like 49 on the button, 13 in the small blind, and 54. Here we have a sim which is 48, 13, 53. So yeah, pretty much exactly what we had in-game, which is perfect. And we can see our queen 5 suited is super close, actually. I went for the raise in-game, and we can see this is completely fine. We can do whatever we want, basically. We can raise small, we can jam, or we can limp. As long as you don't fold, you're doing okay. Yeah, not too much else to discuss there. It did feel very close to me as well. So that's nice to see. Let's go into post-flop though, and have a look how it did post-flop. So this is the post-flop spot we had. Ranges are going to be slightly different because I went for 2.5x. Raise sim is using min raise, but of course these are negligible differences and it won't matter much. On the flop, our queen 5 mostly wants to check, as we did. It can bet sometimes. EV is very close, but yeah, vast majority of the time you just want to check. I did check. Opponent bet 1.2 big blinds. We can change it. I mean, it obviously doesn't matter much, but we can change it to have it accurate. I assume we're gonna call. Yeah, just calling. Not really closed. Very intuitive to not do anything else. We're not gonna play any small racing here. We're just gonna be all in or call. Cool. Turn was king of clubs. Curious to see if there's any leading. I felt leading was on the table here. Yeah, there's a bunch actually. Our hand is leading pure as well. It does feel like an intuitive one. Decent EV difference as well. It's just like a really nice hand for leading actually. What's the EV on the turn? Okay, so we have like 63% equity almost on the turn and 65% pot share in EV. In-game obviously just checked and I decided that I wasn't going to play leads. So I'm going to have to just remove this to make it a bit more accurate in terms of what was actually happening. He bets 42. In-game he bets 2.1 bigs. So I think we'll just change it again to that. Make it as accurate as possible. River is going to be the least interesting spot, right? Do we ever raise on the turn? No. Once we've checked, we're just going to be calling this one. I think that's also fairly intuitive. Yeah, and then on the river was 5 of clubs. And I can't... I wouldn't be surprised if there's some leading here, like some small leading, but actually like we're doing a bunch of lead jamming. Not a bunch. We're doing a tiny bit of lead jamming, actually. I was also not playing this. River is not going to be too interesting to look at. I mean, he's going to be jamming a bunch. And we're obviously going to be calling the 5. Like that can't be close. These ones are funny. Calling like queen 9 with a spade. Even without a spade, just calling queen 9, queen 8, queen 10, ace queen. That's a flush. Okay. Yeah, nothing too interesting going on the river. I think we're just out of the tournament. But once we get to the river like this, we're just dealt out of the tournament. And nothing would have changed if we would have led the turn either. If we lead the turn, he just calls, and then I guess we value jam river. We can have a look really quick at what we're supposed to do in the lead line, actually. So lead, call, 5 of clubs. Do we just value jam? Okay, we play a very passive strategy in this line, actually. Just B25 sometimes, but mostly just check. That was it for this 2-part series. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. I know this second part was very rapid fire. We didn't go too much in depth, but I think this is a cool way to learn sometimes as well. Just run through a bunch of ICM preflop spots to see how accurate intuition is. So hopefully you enjoyed, and yeah, see you for the next one.